But what if I told you that almost everything you just picked up was designed to make you believe it is healthy while quietly working against you? Not because of some wild conspiracy, but because of how food is manufactured, marketed, and labeled in a system built around profit margins and shelf life, not your well-being. Today, we are going to walk through the everyday foods millions of people reach for because they believe they are the smart choice to us, and we are going to look at what is actually happening behind those labels, those buzzwords, and those bright green packages that scream natural and healthy. By the end of this video, you will never look at your grocery list the same way again. Let's start with bread, because bread is one of the biggest illusions in the entire grocery store. Walk down any bread aisle and you will see loaves covered in phrases like multigrain, made with whole wheat, and contains ancient grains. These phrases are chosen carefully because they sound like whole grain, but often are not. A loaf can be labeled multigrain and still be made primarily from refined white flour, with a small amount of other grains added, just so the label is technically true. The only way to know if bread is actually whole grain is to check if whole wheat or whole grain is the very first ingredient listed, not the fifth or sixth. Beyond the grain question, many mass-produced breads contain dough conditioners, preservatives, and added sugars that extend shelf life and improve texture, but have nothing to do with nutrition. Some of these additives have raised enough concern that they have been reformulated or removed in other countries while remaining in circulation elsewhere, which tells you a lot about how these decisions get made, based on regulation and cost, not necessarily on what is best for the people eating it. And now let's talk about breakfast in general, because breakfast cereal might be the single most successful health illusion ever created. Boxes are covered in claims like made with real fruit, excellent source of fiber, and heart healthy, often while a single serving contains close to the same amount of sugar as a candy bar. Some cereals, marketed specifically to children, can contain more sugar per serving than a chocolate chip cookie, wrapped in cartoon characters and phrases that make parents feel like they are making a responsible choice. The fiber and vitamins added to these cereals are often sprayed on after processing strips the grain of its natural nutrients in the first place. So you are essentially eating a stripped-down product with synthetic nutrients added back in, then marketed as wholesome. This pattern of stripping out nutrition and then adding a fraction of it back in synthetically, just enough to make a label claim true, shows up again and again across processed foods. Let's move to something that surprises almost everyone: olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil is supposed to be the gold standard of healthy fats, cold-pressed, unrefined, packed with antioxidants. But testing conducted by food safety researchers and university labs around the world has repeatedly found that a significant percentage of oils labeled extra virgin on store shelves do not actually meet the chemical standards required for that label. Some are cut with cheaper refined oils, some are simply mislabeled, and some come from olives that were not fresh enough to produce true extra virgin quality in the first place. This does not mean every bottle on the shelf is fake, but it does mean the label alone is not proof of quality. Looking for a harvest date, a specific country of origin rather than just a bottling location, and third-party certification seals can help you find oil that is actually what it claims to be. Cooking oils in general deserve a closer look too. For decades, certain vegetable and seed oils were promoted as heart-healthy alternatives to butter and animal fats, largely based on early research, funded in part by the industries that produce them. In more recent years, some doctors and researchers have started questioning how heavily processed many of these oils are, given that extracting oil from something like a corn kernel or a canola seed requires industrial processing involving heat, solvents, and chemical refining steps rather than simple pressing. That does not automatically make them dangerous, but it does mean the phrase heart healthy on a label is doing a lot of marketing work that the actual production process does not always support. The debate among nutrition scientists is ongoing, and part of what makes this topic so tricky is that the guidance has genuinely shifted more than once as new research has come in. Let's talk about something almost everyone assumes is simple, bottled water. The clear implication on many labels, mountain imagery, phrases like pure and natural spring water, suggests these bottles are filled straight from a pristine source. In reality, investigations have found that a notable portion of bottled water sold commercially is treated municipal tap water that has simply been filtered and repackaged, sometimes from the very same water systems available from your own kitchen faucet for a tiny fraction of the price. On top of that, testing organizations have found trace amounts of microplastics in bottled water samples, often at higher levels than tap water, largely because of the plastic packaging and bottling process itself. This does not mean bottled water is unsafe to drink, but it does mean you may be paying a premium for something you already have access to. Now let's get into fast food supply chains, because this is where the gap between marketing and reality gets especially wide. Chains love to advertise phrases like fresh, never frozen, and 100% real. And in narrow technical terms, those claims can be true while still describing something very different from what most people picture. Meat can be fresh in the sense that it was never frozen while still being processed, injected with solutions to retain moisture, or reform from smaller trimmings pressed together. Produce marketed as fresh may travel through several distribution centers and sit in refrigerated storage for extended periods before it ever reaches a restaurant. None of this is illegal, and it does not mean the food is unsafe, but it does mean the story on the menu board is often a simplified, flattering version of a much longer and more industrial process. Let's address organic labeling, because this is one of the most misunderstood parts of the entire grocery store. Organic does not mean pesticide-free. Certified organic farms are still permitted to use certain approved pesticides, just ones derived from natural sources, rather than synthetic ones. And natural does not automatically mean gentler or safer. Organic also does not guarantee a product is healthier, lower in sugar, or lower in calories. It only refers to the farming and processing methods used. You can absolutely buy organic cookies, organic soda, and organic candy that offer no meaningful nutritional advantage over their non-organic counterparts. They simply cost more because of the certification process and the perception the word organic creates in a shopper's mind. Speaking of price, let's talk about the tricks built into grocery stores themselves, because a lot of what feels like healthy shopping is actually the store guiding your behavior. Essentials like milk, eggs, and bread are typically placed at the very back of the store, forcing you to walk past aisles of impulse items to reach them. Products placed at eye level are often the ones with the highest profit margin for the store, not necessarily the best value or the healthiest option, while cheaper and sometimes better alternatives sit on lower or higher shelves that require more effort to notice. Bulk discount displays and limited time offer signage are frequently used on items that are not actually discounted at all, simply positioned to create a sense of urgency. Even the lighting, the music, and the placement of bakery smells near the entrance are deliberately designed to influence how much you buy and how you feel while buying it. Finally, let's talk about protein powders, which have exploded in popularity as more people chase fitness and muscle-building goals. Independent lab testing conducted by consumer advocacy groups has found that a surprising number of protein powders on the market contain detectable levels of heavy metals like lead and cadmium, sometimes exceeding safety thresholds set for other consumable products. Some plant-based protein powders have tested higher in these contaminants than whey-based options, largely because plants absorb heavy metals from soil during growth. Beyond contamination concerns, many protein powders pad their ingredient list with proprietary blends, a labeling tactic that allows companies to avoid disclosing the exact ratio of ingredients inside, making it difficult to know how much of the actual protein source you are getting compared to fillers, thickeners, and artificial sweeteners. So, where does this leave you standing in the grocery store the next time you shop? The goal here is not to make you afraid of food or convinced that everything is out to get you, because that kind of thinking is exhausting and not particularly useful. The real goal is to make you a more skeptical reader of labels and marketing language, to teach you to flip the package over and check the actual ingredient list rather than trusting the front of the box, to understand that words like natural, healthy, and fresh carry almost no legal weight in most places and can be applied to nearly anything, and to recognize that the food industry's job is to sell product, not necessarily to protect your health. Small habits make a real difference here, reading ingredient lists from top to bottom. Since ingredients are listed by quantity, looking past front of package claims and checking nutrition panels directly, researching brands you buy regularly instead of assuming a familiar name means a trustworthy process, and simply asking why a product needs to make a claim so loudly in the first place. Food companies are not going anywhere, and neither is clever marketing. But the more you understand how this system actually works, the harder it becomes for a label to fool you. And that, more than any single food swap, is the real first step toward eating in a way that actually serves you.